the ruling class of this country does not even become embarrassed and does not even pretend to want to serve the people. There is no social contract. India and China, the Indian Chinese states, are more contemporary states than is the US state. The American state is a product of the 18th century, where European nations, European capitalist nations, were only recently into the industrial age. In fact, if somebody is to lecture someone else, it seems that Asians have a legitimate right in terms of the contemporary world to instruct us about the modern state. And even Jean-Jacques Rousseau's notion of the social contract, which the substance of which does not really exist in the United States. And the interesting thing is that the American people, in vast numbers, realize that the ruling elite of the United States serves its own interests and not those of the American people. As to the question of can America be reformed, I think we have to make certain distinctions. That is not a question that will be answered by the ruling elite of the United States. They more or less say there is no need for fundamental reform. On the other side, growing numbers of American people are saying the opposite. Now, there is not a clear voice at this point, but the discontent is so palpable and so deep and so profound that it is not going too far to say that a situation separating the state from the people, the elite from the people, this kind of division has not existed since the American Civil War of 1861, 1865, and this crisis might go beyond that. The divide between the elite and the American people is deeper, perhaps, than in any country, modern country in the world. Another way to say this, the political crisis faced by the ruling elite of the United States exceeds the crises, political crises that exist anywhere in the world. This is the country whose ruling class claims to govern democratically. The people don't believe it. The transition from what in essence is an authoritarianism clothed in language of democracy. Quite an irony, I have to say, it makes you laugh. Authoritarianism with a practice of electoral democracy, most times very corrupt and so on, with a vast propaganda machinery that says to the American people and to the world's people, don't believe what you experience, believe what we're telling you. And the American people don't believe it anymore. In US political science, this is what is called a crisis of legitimacy. And that is what we face. Lenin, if you don't mind me bringing his name up, called it a situation where the ruling class cannot rule in the old way and the people will not accept being ruled in the old way. Let me just give a couple of indicators of where we are. Let me just say, first of all, we are not on the cusp of a revolutionary situation. We are in a crisis, an economic crisis, the vastness and depth of which official statistics and official government statements do not address. Inflation as it relates to prices affecting the working people of this country is way beyond 8.5%. We're talking about double-digit inflation. Everyone knows. When I say everyone, I'm talking about ordinary working people know that we are on the cusp of a recession, an economic downturn that might go beyond 2008, coupled with inflation, a catastrophe, the likes of which our people have not experienced since the Great Depression of the 1930s. This coupled with war and war spending. Let me say a couple of things, because the propaganda of the US elite is so ubiquitous and so targeted and sophisticated that there's certain facts that people might not know. First of all, America, the American people as a whole, are less racist today than they were 50 years ago at the height of the civil rights movement. In other words, the Third American Revolution, the Black Freedom Movement, the Civil Rights Movement, this great human rights project did affect the consciousness and still affects the consciousness in an evolving and maturing way of the American people, Black, white, Asian, Latino, and so on. Are there racists in the United States? Yes, there are a lot of racists. Are there people that don't like Black people? Yes, there are a lot of people that don't like Black people. But when you measure historical movements of consciousness, America is less racist today than it was 50 years ago. Names such as Martin Luther King, Muhammad Ali, Coretta Scott King, the great artists and musicians have impacted the minds and hearts of the American people. We are not the same. The other thing, anti-war sentiment. This might come as shocking news to a lot of people, and it probably should, because of what American propaganda does not say about the American people. The American people are today more anti-war than we were at the height of the anti-Vietnam War movement. America is a very limited democracy, if a democracy at all. I am from Philadelphia. I invite my colleagues from England and from China and from India and anywhere else, come to Philadelphia. I will personally give you a tour of this fifth largest city in the United States, and I will show you concretely what the policies of the US ruling class have done to the people of this city. And I could take you to Chicago or New York, but I'm saying the city that I know. Drug addiction and open air drug selling on a magnitude and level that we have never seen in this city. Violence, gun violence. I'm not only talking about Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde in Texas. I'm talking about across every city in this country. People fear going outside of their homes. But the ruling elite of Philadelphia continues to build tall skyscrapers in the center of the city, where homelessness is widespread, drug addiction is widespread, anxiety and fear of violence is widespread. The ruling class of this country does not even become embarrassed and does not even pretend to want to serve the people. There is no social contract, no obligation on the part of the government, of the ruling elite to deliver and serve the people. There is hardly a public education system that we could call such. Most students, well, let me put it this way, 46% of all students in Philadelphia's public schools drop out before they graduate from high school. And most who graduate are functionally illiterate, cannot read, can barely count. A generation of young Black and brown and white people, youth, who have no future. This is America. It is two Americas or three Americas. It is America of a population that is not what it was 50, 60 years ago, and the potentiality of the American people are greater today. For change will be difficult, but the possibilities of change are there. We must fight for them.